Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented today by the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Alhaji Ibrahim Tanko Mohammed, the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Obafemi Hamzat, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm particularly proud this morning to be addressing you at the 59th edition of the Annual General Conference of the Annual General Conference is our flagship event. It allows us to interrogate the essence of our profession. It allows us to seek contemporary ways and innovative ways to deliver value to our clients and to our country. I thought it was important, being the 59th conference, to actually state one particular statistic that shows the importance of this conference. I was having a conversation with Horatio Neto, the president of the International Bar Association, this morning, and I said to him there are almost 12,000 delegates at this conference. He said to me that is 2 IBA conferences, because on the average, the IBA conference is 6,000 delegates. So that in itself is proof of how well and alive the Nigerian Bar Association is. The theme of the Nigerian Bar Association Annual General Conference is facing the future. And I'm sure most of you are thinking, why facing the future? Facing the future for us is opportune, particularly at this time. And again, I will focus on statistics to show why this is the right time for us to focus on the future. Lagos, the capital city of Lagos State, where we are having this conference, today has 20 million people. In 20 years, this city will be 40 million people. The country today is 200 million people, with an average growth rate of 3% year on year. Nigeria will be 400 million people in 20 years. Those statistics in itself shows why we need to focus on our role in the future, what opportunities will exist for our colleagues in the future, and why it's important to keep the legal profession on the straight and narrow. It's also important when we focus on the country having only one product that it sells, crude oil. Recognizing that also in 20 years, total production will meet local consumption. There will no longer be any exports of crude oil out of this country. So it's important for the legal profession to focus on what is the future and how do we engage the future. Particularly for us at this time, the threats of globalization, that's the future. There are contemporary challenges, there's external competition, there are new frontiers of knowledge and technology. In a world of AI and robotics, what is the role of a lawyer in the future? I think it's important to recognize that whether we like it or not, to recognize that there is increasing competition. Today, in a world of globalization, geographical borders mean very little. We are constantly under threat from international law firms and from other service providers, particularly the accounting firms. It's not a coincidence that we're in Lagos holding this conference. Lagos is the commercial capital of the country. It's also the technology hub of the country. This is where all the fintech companies come out of. It is where the tech incubators reside and remains the center for angel investment in Nigeria. I think it's important to therefore recognize that discussing the future in Lagos is most appropriate at this time, because those challenges that we face, the challenges of population, the challenges of globalization, the challenges of reduced revenue from the oil industry, those are challenges that we can all engage, discuss, look for solutions, but look for those solutions in this city that essentially continues to push the envelope on growth. Ladies and gentlemen, for this conference, we have a vast array of speakers. We have engaging topics. Our panelists have been drawn from around the world with expertise in subject matter, with a wealth of experience. We, as the Conference Planning Committee, we would like you to not just to enjoy our conference, but also enjoy the city of Lagos. In spite of the traffic every once in a while, I think Lagos has significant opportunities for tourism, for the nightlife. As some of you may have seen over the last 24 hours, the village, the Nigerian Bar Association, AGC Village, is at Harbour Point, where you all registered. The Friendship Center is there, and that, for us, is also a center where all of us will meet and engage. Ladies and gentlemen, and I know it's not yet time for thank yous, but I just want to place on record our appreciation to the government of Lagos State, who have been extremely supportive in our holding of this conference in Lagos. On a final note, I think it's important to note that the ideas that we expect that we will engage in and discuss at this conference will define the future. It will define the future for our profession. It will define the future for our country. It will define the future for the continent, given Nigeria's relative size and the importance of our economy to the continent. On behalf of my co-chair, Olumide Akpata, and the members of the Conference Planning Committee, I welcome you to our conference. I wish you fruitful deliberations. I wish you an enjoyable time in the city of Lagos. And I'm sure that when we get to the end of this conference, you will confirm and agree with us that not only do we have the largest attendance at any IBA conference, but that this will also be the most successful IBA, NBA annual general conference that's ever been held in Nigeria. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Please join me in welcome Mr. Paul Usoro, Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
Mr. President, represented by the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, our Chief Justice of Nigeria, Your Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, represented by the Deputy Governor of Lagos State. I must also recognize Your Excellency, the Consul General of the United States of America, and I thank you very much, Your Excellency, for making the time to be with us. Horacio Neto, the President of the International Bar Association, we're very pleased to have you with us. My lords of all the courts, my distinguished senior advocates, and of course I must recognize especially our past presidents. If they had not built a good foundation, I would not be where I am today. And I thank all of you for that. my very distinguished colleagues, I was listening to Gbenga Oyebode in his welcome speech, and in the last parts, I heard him mistake and say this would be the best IBA conference. And I said to myself, I forgive him, because actually this is as well organized as any IBA conference that I have attended. And I have attended quite a few. I welcome all of you to this 59th Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association. One might ask, why do we have these annual conferences? What is the essence of having the annual conference? I would attempt to give 4 reasons, and that is not exhaustive, why the annual conference is always a hit and must-have program for us lawyers in Nigeria. I'll start with the first one, which Gbenga referred to in some ways, and that is that it renews friendship for us. Just think of 12,000 lawyers from across Nigeria coming in, and we have been friends. Maybe we met in law school the last time, and then we are coming in for the annual conference. That's when we renew our friendships. That's when we build new relationships. That's when we make sure that our bonds as learned colleagues and learned friends, they actually represent those words, friends and colleagues. And that's why this conference is always important, and that's why we have this crowd here. And that, in some sense, is also why we have the Friendship Center in Harbour Point. That is only one of the aspects of our annual conference. There is also another one that is perhaps slightly more important, and that is that the annual conference affords us the opportunity to place on the national agenda contemporary issues, issues that affect other people. It may not necessarily be a lawyer's issue, but they are issues that affect Nigerians generally. For, after all, we are known as the voice of the voiceless. We are the ones who speak for everyone in Nigeria. And that is why, if you look at your program for this conference, you will see programs such as security, kidnapping, etc., and how we're going to deal, how it should be dealt with. That is why you also have an assemblage of experts who are not necessarily lawyers coming in to dissect, discuss these issues. It gives us opportunity actually to place those contemporary issues built around the theme of the conference. That is also why you have such economic issues like the African Continental Trade Agreement, which recently was signed by Nigeria, and we have to discuss the opportunities that we can benefit from that agreement. And for our international friends who came in from the United Kingdom, we actually have issues like Brexit and where Nigeria fits in as far as Brexit is concerned. And so the second reason why we have this conference is actually to place those contemporary issues, discuss them, understand how it benefits us lawyers, the relevance to the ordinary Nigerian person, and in fact for our country, and in the process help in setting an agenda for Nigeria as a country. There is a third reason that we have this conference, and this has something to do with our profession. This conference affords us the opportunity to review how we operate, the framework within which we operate as lawyers, to look at the regulatory issues that we need to put on the table and address in the practice of law. It allows us to look at the relationship between the different arms of the profession, the bar and the bench. And we, as Nigerian Bar Association, feel very pleased that the bench is always coming in to join us for our conference. We particularly feel pleased that the head of the Nigerian judiciary, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, is with us today. And we'll have, if you look at your program, a topic on the bar-bench relationship. There is also in the program another topic that relates to the regulation of the legal profession. And those are things that relate to us. And why is this important? This is important because we are the honorable profession. And it is important that we must always examine those things that would continue to bring honor to our profession and make sure that whatever would taint the profession or bring dishonor to the profession is excised, it's removed. And that is why that third reason for our conference is very important. But I go to the fourth reason, which is even more material than the first three. And that is the protection, the promotion, the preservation of the rule of law. When we were singing the national anthem some minutes ago, and the second stanza, do you recall what we said? We prayed that the Almighty should give us the ability to build a country where peace and justice will reign. Can you possibly have peace and justice without the rule of law? It is not possible. And so, the entire essence of being lawyers is to be sure that the rule of law is protected, the rule of law is preserved, the rule of law is promoted at all times. And there are different facets of the rule of law. The rule of law includes the independence of the legal profession. The rule of law includes the independence of the judiciary. The rule of law talks about access to justice. The rule of law takes care of the rich. The rule of law protects the weak and the poor. The rule of law knows no religion. The rule of law has no tribe. The rule of law does not belong to a political party. It is an issue that is common to all of us. And therefore, we as lawyers, whether we're in government or we're in private practice, wherever we are, we have that responsibility to make sure that the rule of law is protected, is promoted, and is preserved. That is one of the principal reasons why we always gather for this conference. And that is why, if you look at your program, you would see that there is a special symposium, a plenary symposium, that is entirely devoted to the rule of law. And I'm hoping that we will have a crowd that is more than this at that plenary session. I actually had pleaded that I be allowed to deliver the keynote speech, but I was told that Horacio has that responsibility, and that I only have 5 to 10 minutes to deliver my own address. And therefore, I would not take Horacio's role. It only remains for me to pay tribute to a couple of people who are here. I would have talked about, and I think I should still talk about, the role of Lagos State. I actually told the officials of the state that this is going to be the most successful annual general conference that we have had, and that we couldn't have contemplated it without the support of Lagos State. I thank you for that role, Your Excellency. But I must also mention my Lord Honorable Justice Ibrahim Tanko, the Chief Justice of Nigeria. And why do I mention him? Yes, this is a gathering of lawyers, and, well, let me give this joke. Well, it's not exactly a joke. When I was campaigning to be the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, there was a judge who believed in me very much, and his lordship mentioned to me that he really was going to campaign for me. And maybe his lordship saw me look at him quizzically, wondering, what does a judge have to do with Nigerian Bar Association? And his lordship explained to me that he has never heard of anyone who was called to the bench, that everyone was called to the bar, including those who are on the bench. And so even those on the bench must have an interest in what happens at the bar. But I mentioned the Chief Justice for a specific reason. His lordship is bereaved. In fact, he lost 2 close relatives just last week. And that is enough for his lordship to have said he has to be in the village, he has to be with the bereaved family to take care of them. But because of the love his lordship has for the profession, because of his interest in the bar affairs, when I sent word to his lordship indicated he would still come. And I thank you, my lord, for agreeing to come. Thank you so very much. I must also mention the president of the Federation, represented by our colleague, the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. In point of fact, the president had indicated that he would be here personally for this session. And we had all the assurance. If you do not have, and let me get that, let me hit you a little bit, my Honorable Attorney General. If you do not have your program on hand, it's because there was a change of plan and His Excellency had to travel. But His Excellency could have decided that he's traveling and that, well, you go on with your program. I can't make it, and there's nothing I can do. It's important. That's not what His Excellency did. His Excellency nominated our colleague, our very good friend, a friend of the bar, Abubakar Malami, Senior Advocate, to represent him for the purposes of this welcome. We request you, sir, to pass our appreciation on to His Excellency. And we thank you very much for coming in. We are hoping that you would be here or your colleagues would remain in the course of this session because, as I mentioned, this is an agenda-setting conference, and we would like the government to also know the agenda that the Bar Association is setting, which the government should imbibe. Very finally, I must give my great appreciation to Horacio Neto, Bernardes Neto. Now, I'm struggling to explain his role. I am only the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, and I know the headaches that go with being president of the Nigerian Bar Association. Now you can multiply that into the number of countries in the world that have bar associations, and then you can see the headache that Horacio carries on his head. But I'll tell you, when Horacio became the president of the International Bar Association, he indicated to me that one of his primary areas of focus would be Africa. And when I mentioned to him we were going to have the largest congregation of lawyers in Africa, he agreed that he would come, despite his very tight schedule. For this, Horacio, we are in your depths, and we appreciate greatly that you decided to come in for this conference. Thank you so very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it simply remains for me to welcome you once again for this conference and wish all of us very successful, very memorable deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Paul Usoro, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, the President of the Nigerian Bar Association. Let's put our hands together for him one more time. And the goodwill message is going to be delivered by none other than our host in the state of Lagos. That is our Executive Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. And today he is represented by his very able deputy, our Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Dr. Femi Hamzat. Could you join me and welcome Dr. Femi Hamzat as he comes up on stage?
The President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, ably represented by the Attorney General and the Honorable Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, His Lordship, Justice Dr. Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, CFR, Acting Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Honorable Justice John Soho, President Nigerian Bar Association, Horatius Benedict Neto, President Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Paul Usoro, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, the Head of Service of Lagos State, Mr. Akim Muri Okonla, members of the Lagos State Executive Council that are here, particularly the Attorney General and Honorable Commissioner for Justice for Lagos State, Mr. Moyo Onigbanjo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Justice, Mrs. Funlola Odunlami. And I saw the former Attorney General of Lagos State, Mr. Niji Kazim, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, distinguished delegates, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It's humbling to be in the midst of so many learned men and women. Unfortunately, as learned as we are, we couldn't clone people yet. So His Excellency the Governor cannot be cloned. So that's why I'm here to represent him. It is my pleasure to welcome the President of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Paul Usoro, and every distinguished members that I've mentioned before, and delegates to the 2019 Annual General Conference, which is being hosted in the most preferred location for iconic and seminar events, Lagos State, which we refer to as the Center of Excellence. You will recall that in 2017, Lagos State had the honor of hosting the Bar Conference, which I believe was full of pleasant memories. Just 2 years after, the conference again is taking place here in the city of Lagos. We are delighted and excited to welcome you with full assurance that this year's event will record unprecedented success. I consider the theme of this conference, Facing the Future, very interesting and instructive. The theme is a recognition on the part of the Nigerian Bar Association of the reality of today and its future impact on the practice of legal profession, including justice delivery system. The phenomenal changes that have been witnessed in the past few decades, leading to the 21st century, has revolutionized our ways of life. And the major driving force behind this change is technology. There is no profession, be it medical, legal, civil engineering, whatever, that has not felt the impact of technology. Indeed, any profession that fails to incorporate technology into its practice will lose its relevance and miss a place in the future, which is fast unfolding. Every profession must therefore understand the language of technology and adopt it effectively for greater output and efficiency. Today, a number of technological innovations, tools, and softwares are being developed and deployed to perform tests that are normally being carried out by human beings. It is interesting to note that today, Ross, the first world robot lawyer, has been developed and are already being hired by notable international law firms across the globe. So the need for the legal profession to rise up to the challenge posed by technology was aptly expressed by the Chief Justice of Singapore, Sudanesh Menon, at the 29th Inter-Pacific Bar Association annual meeting and conference. He said, and I quote, "If we all start thinking deeply now about the impact that technology is having, and we have on the law, and if we do not shrink from taking the necessary and perhaps even painful steps to adapt to those changes that will be brought upon us, we might give ourselves a chance of safeguarding a future in which we can continue to play an important role in the delivery of a vital public service," end of quote. It is therefore very heartwarming to note that Nigerian Bar Association, by this team, is demonstrating its readiness to reposition the practice of legal profession in tune with the envisaged future environment in which it will operate. Given its status in Africa, the Nigerian Bar Association is looked upon to lead the rest of the continent to face the future with confidence and with hope. A whole lot of work will need to be done to be able to adapt effectively to the fast-changing environment characterized by technology and innovation. A key step in this regard will be the integration of ICT skills acquisition into the training curriculum for lawyers. I have no doubt in my mind that at the end of this conference, delegates will have been sufficiently enlightened and empowered to take advantage of the enormous benefit of technology to further enhance the practice of law and speedy delivery of justice. Finally, permit me to conclude that with over 21 million residents and owing to the cosmopolitan nature and diversity of our state, Lagos, this administration has restated its commitment to social development, improvement of justice dispensation, and the maintenance of law and order in ensuring Lagos works for all of us. Our success as a government lies more in our continuous collaboration with stakeholders in the administration of justice to achieve our goals and the realities of an efficient justice delivery system. It has been said that the difference between the so-called developed countries and developing countries is the rule of law and technology. Therefore, once again, on behalf of the people and government of Lagos, I welcome you all and wish you a very successful conference, and I implore you to enjoy the spirit and the aquatic splendor of our state, Lagos. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Please join me and welcome to the stage Mr. Horacio Bernardes Neto.
I thought that since I'm the dessert of this huge banquet of people who speak so well, I did not deserve to come from the front door. So I decided to take the back door and humbly come and greet you. My very dear friend, Paul Uzoro, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, President of the Nigerian Bar Association. You honored me a lot by inviting me to speak to so many people, but especially I see here so many young faces. And this is really what we need. I think bar associations in general, they are successful if in their meetings there are young people. Because since we are talking about the future, I think that it is important that they tell us what they want from the future. And the future will certainly not be what it was for us. But Paul, once again, thank you very much for your invitation. Thank you to the Nigerian Bar Association. Thank you, the Nigerian legal community. Thank your excellencies for being here. Thank you for listening to me. I'm having an incredibly warm reception here in this country. I said to Paul that I'm going to move the IBA to here if he goes on treating me like this, you know. Well, it was said already that I have set one of my priorities in Africa. I'm going to be in Africa quite often, especially in the second year of my tenure. So I think we are going to have to learn to cope with me somehow. I'm here to talk about one of the most and difficult issues that may exist, is to try to foresee the future of the legal profession. I am Jurassic, as you know. I belong to I'm a lawyer for 250 years now, and I'm really Jurassic. When I started, law firms that were very modern had faxes, had telexes. Probably none of you knows what telex is, but we had the telex, and telex was something that didn't demand immediate answer. So you could answer, you could correct your typos, you could read, you could study, you could meet with your partners, and so have a drink, and then answer. This is over. One day I was already president of the AIJA. I was president of AIJA when I was 45. I was president of AIJA, and we decided, some AIJA friends, to go have dinner together. And one of our colleagues started to be late, and he came like 40 minutes late. And he said, "You cannot imagine what I saw." He was white. "You cannot imagine what I saw. There is now a machine. You put a paper in one machine, and the same paper comes in another machine." And everybody at the table said, "No, you didn't see it right. This cannot exist, of course. It was a printer." I said, "No, it was not a printer. It was a machine. You can put a picture, and the picture appears there." I said, "No, let's have a drink. You are not in." So at that time, can you imagine what the president of the IBA at that time would tell you in prediction of the future? Would he eventually imagine that we would have cell phones in which a room filled of computers to my time are comparable? Would he have an idea that we would be speaking about cybersecurity, about artificial intelligence, about the cloud, this thing that nobody knows? I think nobody understands what the cloud is. And many of our secrets are there, I don't know where. And the IBA, so I ask you, please, don't take me too seriously. Don't take me too seriously, because what I'm going to say here is probably nothing will happen. But at least that is my idea. The IBA has a permanent commission on the future of the profession, and this commission has its remit to really see the progress and observe the progress of the profession and give advice on the destinies of the profession. The fact is that in this moment, and this is something that we cannot deny, the legal profession is going through a very big transformation. I think that this is probably going to be, this time we are living now, it will be marked by the modification of parameters for us in the legal profession. First of all, because the attractiveness of the market for lawyers, that was until the 90 and 2000, has made that new players would come to our market. Nowadays, there are other service providers that do what we used to do. investigation, recovery of assets, tax advice. This is nowadays already done, so the client nowadays wants more for less, and thus wants us to concentrate on what we know to do, which is the law. Technology will certainly be the driving force of this transformation in the legal profession. Today, digitalization in the judiciary is already a reality. In my country, there is no one single physical procedure any longer. Everything is electronic file. As a matter of fact, my country has 1 million lawyers. Before, information is nowadays not very worthy. Everybody has information. You go to Google and you want to know when it was the first crusade and who was the king of Persia in 10 AC. Everything is there. So we have to change a little bit our focus, and I think the universities have to change it as well. Nowadays, the important thing is to teach how to deal with the information you have. Because, of course, you have to have the basis of law, you have to know the law, but the information, and if you want jurisprudence, for instance, nowadays there are electronic tools that do jurisprudence research in 1 minute and give you all the decisions on a certain matter that existed in the world. But also, so as I said, we were the owners of the profession. We were the owners of our law firms. Firms were owned by lawyers. We could do in our law firms what we lawyers wanted to do. Nowadays, you have already in the UK, in the UK and in Australia, you have public companies practicing law. That means companies that are quoted in the stock exchange and practice law. In Italy, in Spain, in Singapore, in many European countries, you can invest as an investor in a law firm. There are a lot of people that invest in a law firm. If you take this consideration, if you have an open company, how will I justify to my shareholders that I didn't pick up a case because it was against my conscience, and with that, didn't make a certain amount of money? How can I say to him that I will not take that case, because that big one, because I think the smaller one is better? These are things that we are going to solve, because this will be reality. This is reality already. Many years ago, we would discuss whether the law was a business or a profession. Nowadays, the discussion doesn't happen anymore. Everybody knows that the law is a business and a very noble profession. We have to adapt ourselves. For me, I'm very conservative, but I'm not going to see the future as you guys will see. We have to think what we are going to do with those concepts. We are going to see what we are going to do to adapt ourselves to the new reality in regard to technology. I have visited, I have visited firms that have teams of legal engineers, teams of legal architects, teams of legal designers. The legal architects are those that prepare the software, either customizing the software or creating the software. The legal engineers are those who feed the software with the needs of the clients. And the legal designers are those that decide how the final product is going to be delivered to the client. And they are all lawyers. So this is the creation of new professions that you guys are going to face. Many of you one day may be a legal engineer in a big law firm. And you have to be a good lawyer to be a legal engineer because you have to know deeply the law. Clients expect nowadays us lawyers to be business advisors, risk advisors, financial advisors. Arbitration is nowadays giving more and more space to mediation. The risk assessment is giving place to litigation. The client prefers much more that you assess the risk and say, don't do that because this may cause you a litigation, that you go there and win the litigation. So we have to adapt ourselves to that. But this will certainly create many new opportunities for us. For us, no, because but for you. Lawyers will not be replaced by robots. Lawyers will create the robots. The robots will be dependent on us. And the robots are not able to create strategies. They are not able to create new ideas. They will be fed by us. Another good job for us lawyers. The diversity and inclusion is another issue that occupies us in the IBA very much through our Diversity and Inclusion Council. Of course, nowadays in the world, in almost all universities, women are the majority or at least half of the students. But when you come to big law firms, when you come to law firms in general, they don't arrive to the top. So this is an issue that we have to promote. We have to promote diversity, not only of gender, but also of culture and geographical. We have to promote diversity, and diversity is only promoted through inclusion. So the future law firms have to be as inclusive as possible. The incorporation of the millenniums in the profession brought very interesting new ideas. Nowadays, I know because it was told me by some young lawyers prefer to work in a firm that has good reputation for pro bono work, has good reputation for access to justice work, has good reputation of promoting the rule of law, than to obtain a larger salary. They prefer to work for someone that does the difference rather than having a better salary. And this is true, and this is true. And the other day I was talking our management of law firms committee did a session in which everybody was explaining, no, in my firm you have to be a lawyer for 7 years, and then you go, and then you are partner, and then you are senior partner, and you are senior partner. And one young boy said, excuse me, how is it the way to do, how have I to act in order not to be any one of you? I don't want to be any one of you. I don't want to work 20 hours a day. I want to have more quality family life. I have more quality. And this is new for us in our times. I would work like 20 hours, and my first son, I almost didn't meet him until he was 18. But the profession has been attacked, and it's been attacked. for reasons of security, for reasons of several reasons, we are under attack in what regards our prerogatives. Legal secrecy is being attacked systematically all over the world because, of course, us lawyers, for the police, we are precious because we know things that you would like to know. So that's where the IBA, the Nigerian Bar Association, the Brazilian Bar Association come and can be very effective, as you are here in Nigeria. We have to speak up for the lawyers. We have to guarantee that our core values are observed. We cannot go back 1 second. Some countries have already lost the regulation of the profession. Nowadays in England, for instance, the profession is not regulated by lawyers anymore. It is regulated by a council of which the president is not a lawyer. This is reality in England. This is reality in Australia. So we need to take care of our core values and our core prerogatives. What is certain and clear is that there are some characteristics that are attached to the legal profession. And those, I think, are going to be the same in 50 years, in 20 years, in 100 years, as they were the same in Rome and etc. And this is what we have to notice. There are some characteristics that will never change. Integrity, honesty, independence. This is attached to the legal profession. And if we practice through robots, or if we practice to the internet, or if we send information to the moon or to the cloud, we have always to bear in mind our commitment to the rule of law, our commitment to the human rights, our commitment to our prerogatives, the commitment to the core values of our profession. I think that actually I have a client, I have a friend in a law firm that says that for big operations they are using typewriters because the cybersecurity is so difficult to keep that they are using typewriters. Only for the very big transactions. The world is in need of lawyers, and I see for all young lawyers, and we all know that there is a shift towards the economies of Africa, Asia, Latin America, I hope. So the World Bank says that in 2050, Africa will be responsible for more than 50% of the world GDP. I hope that happens. So that we must really be prepared for the future. If I would say something to you, I would say, you are very fortunate, the young people, because you are going to be able to contribute to this immense transformation that the law is undergoing. You will be the ones who will feed the robot. You will be the ones who will do the... So you have an opportunity, an incredible... You will be the new lawyers, the electronic lawyers. I'm a digital lawyer. You are electronic lawyers. And be electronic, because the world is yours. The legal profession, the world needs lawyers a lot. The legal profession is there. We have to honor it. We have to thank it for all our achievements and respect it. We must, well, this week we are going to have tomorrow, the Rule of Law Symposium. I'll have the honor of addressing you again, so I'll leave my comments on the rule of law for tomorrow. I hope very much to see you numerous. First of all, let me thank specifically the IBA members and officers here present. There are many of them, I have seen them all. Thank you very much for collaborating voluntarily to our fantastic institution. And I really hope to see you numerous, as always, in our conference in Seoul that starts on the 22nd of September. Thank you very much.
Can we give a better round of applause to the President of the International Bar Association, Mr. Horacio Bernardes Neto. Thank you so very much for coming to Nigeria, and thank you for your wonderful message. We will now be taking a special address from the number 3 citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is my privilege this morning to introduce and to ask to come on stage His Lordship, Honorable Justice Ibrahim Tanko, CFR, the Chief Justice of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Permit me to start recognizing the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by the Attorney General of the Federation. Members of the bar who have made it possible for us to gather here to warm up and celebrate ourselves. Our dear invited ladies and gentlemen from within and from outside the country, we welcome you, and we're very grateful for coming to Nigeria. You are welcome. My dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I have been asked by the organizers of this conference to say a word or two. Well, I decided to say 3 words. Well, it gives me great pleasure to be invited to deliver this address at the 59th Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association Annual General Conference 2019. May I, on behalf of the Nigerian judiciary, extend my hearty congratulations to the President and members of the Nigerian Bar Association for hosting this 59th NBA General Conference 2019. I equally appreciate the Nigerian Bar Association for its mature engagement with the bench and other arms of government in furtherance of its objectives and mandate under its constitution. This, I believe, is not only befitting of the NBA's almost 60-year history as an organized bar in Nigeria, but desirable as both the bench and the bar, represent the twin pillars of ethics and the standard in the legal profession. We equally know that the NBA is constitutionally charged with the protection of the rule of law for all people. The theme for this year's Bar Conference, Facing the Future, sounds philosophical but instructive to all of us as legal practitioners, our institutions, and indeed our nation. It indeed belongs the thinking of the judiciary with respect to our resolve to ensure the emergence of an institution strengthened to deliver justice courageously and tirelessly. The vintage Nigerian Bar Association has come out to be futuristic in its operation by making the theme of this year's conference to be Facing the Future. This is an apt and thought-provoking theme because, as Charles Catherine once said, and I quote, "We would all be concerned about the future because we will have to spend the rest of our lives there," unquote. By saying there, he is meaning that is the future. I believe we are very conversant with the general saying that he who fails to plan will invariably plan to fail. What do we see in the future? How determined are we to face the challenges ahead? What sacrifices are we willing to make to attain the glorious future ahead? These and many more are the questions every discerning mind in this hall should be asking. Some pessimists may speak of a bleak future based on the limit of their vision or the timidity of their hearts. But for the Nigerian judiciary under our watch, I can assure you that by the grace of God, the future looks bright. Since my appointment as the Chief Justice, my focus has been on reinventing our processes to providing speedy and quality administration of justice, strengthening our structures both at the Supreme Court and other courts of record for better service delivery, and stamping out corruption in the judiciary. Modern technology, improved registry operations, enhanced process management form part of the areas of attention towards fast-tracking service delivery in our court system. As it is customary, virtually all justices of the Supreme Court, and indeed those of the Court of Appeal, ought to have by now proceeded on our annual vacation. But because of our higher sense of judicial responsibility and the call to duty, we are left with no other choice than to forfeit such luxury and make sure that we clear and we hear and determine all time sensitive cases pending in our courts in order to ensure that those cases do not lapse to the detriment of the litigants and the judicial system as a whole. That is a sacrifice which our judicial oath of office entails and which we always strive to uphold. This should have been our vacation period. But if you go to our courts, and I am sure both in Court of Appeal and in the Supreme Court, you will find as if we are not on vacation. Now, the Nigerian judiciary under this leadership will not lose its firm grip on the mantle of honesty, transparency, and integrity. The trio forms the nucleus of our administration. By the grace of Almighty God, I will tenaciously hold on to that, even until and up to that very moment of my last breath on earth. Let me assure all and sundry that we don't look at anybody's face or feelings before taking our decisions. If there is any deity to be feared, that deity is the Almighty God. We will never be subservient to anybody, no matter how highly placed. Yes, it is true that funding the judiciary is a problem. However, it still remains a very serious challenge to achieving our overall objective of speedy administration of justice and justice delivery across our courts. Please, all those that are concerned, allow us to enjoy our independence. Now, if you say or you claim that I am independent, but in a way, whether I like it or not, I have to go and bend down asking, I have lost my independence. Now, all I am saying is that funding the judiciary, more particularly at state levels, is a problem. Now, it still remains a very serious challenge to achieving the overall objective of speedy administration of justice and justice delivery across our courts. In spite of the court judgment on the independence of the judiciary, pronouncing our budget as a first-line charge on the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, funding constraints continue to militate against the development of new initiatives toward the full implementations of reform ideas. It is, however, our resolve to face the future with greater zeal and to the challenges of justice delivery in our country. We are ready if we have support from the bar. To take the bull by the horn. Now let me reiterate our invitation to the bar to join hands with the judiciary to enforce ethical practice and the rules of professional conduct for all lawyers, while the abuses would continue to impact negatively on our efforts at speedy administration of justice. Many lawyers, including some senior counsel, continue to file fresh appeals before the Supreme Court in respect of matters already decided by the court. You know that this matter which you are bringing on appeal, a similar issue was decided by the Supreme Court, but you will still insist, telling your client that there is no problem. When you actually know that there's a problem, please let us call a spade a spade. Now, this marks of an attempt to relitigate matters already concluded, thus adding to the congestion of the court and stalling the legal process. But if the newsman will ask you, we are noticing that there are delays in the court, there is this and that, and you will now say that, no, it is the court process. When you know that you are a contributing factor to that delay, please let us put heads together. The bar, the judiciary, we must not only fly together, but we must be seen flying together. I'm sure whatever affects you equally affects me. Whatever affects me equally affects you. Please let us put heads together to salvage our country, to salvage ourselves, to salvage our profession. Now, these are all beside the continuing practice of filing multiple interlocutory applications calculated to deliberately stagnate the pace of service delivery on pending cases. The Supreme Court will continue to punish blatant abuse of judicial process in courts and other sanctions available under our rules, just as other courts are at liberty to do the same in accordance with their respective rules of court. May I also invite the leadership of the Nigerian Bar Association to strengthen its disciplinary apparatus to respond to this continuing abuse, to ensure a comprehensive discouragement of such and other unethical conduct by legal practitioners, including members of the inner bar. As we gather here today in the olden city of Lagos for the next 4 days, engrossing ourselves into incisive debates through over 40 technical sessions of instructive presentations across various practice areas and topics of national interest, I have no doubt in my mind that we will be heavily enriched and the legal profession repositioned on the path of future growth. It is not a lecture I'm delivering. I am only asked to say some few words. I hope the 3 words I have said suffice, and I wish each and every one of us, not of you, of us, very excellent, peaceful, tranquil, fruitful deliberation throughout the week. Thank you very much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the point this morning for what we really came for, which is to declare this conference open. And to do that for us this morning is none other than the #1 citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari G, CFR, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He is represented here today by none other than the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Could you please join me and welcome on the stage this morning the Attorney General and Minister of Justice to declare the conference open. Thank you. Please put your hands together.
My Lord, please be seated. Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Lagos State, His Excellency Babajide Sanwo-Olu, ably represented this afternoon by His Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Dr. Femi Hamzat, here present. My Lord, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Dr. Ibrahim Tanko Mohammed, CFR, Justices of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal, serving and retired, here present. My learned brother Silk, the President of the Nigerian Bar Association, Paul Usaro SAN, and first President of the Nigerian Bar Association, here present. Our keynote speaker, the President of the International Bar Association, here present. The Chief Judge of Lagos State, the Acting Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, my Lord, the President of the National Industrial Court, here present. My Lords, spiritual and temporal, here present. And my Lords, the Justices of the Superior Court of Records. My learned brother Silk, the Attorney General of Lagos State and the former Attorney General of Lagos. The Chairman, Conference Planning Committee, Mr. Bode, here present, or Mr. Bode, yes. Oyebode. Distinguished members of the Senate and House of Representatives here present, learned senior advocates, senior government officials, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. His Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, regretted his inability to be here this afternoon, in line with a well-cherished tradition by which he was physically present to declare open the annual General Conference of Nigerian Bar Association, which he graciously personally attended last year. Mr. President is today attending Tokyo Conference on African Development in Japan, which is targeted at facing and shaping the Nigerian future. I am delighted on his behalf to address this distinguished gathering on the occasion of the opening ceremony of the 2019 Annual Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association. I thank our great association for the invitation to declare this conference open. I am hopeful that this conference will reaffirm and consolidate the position of the Nigerian Bar Association as a critical stakeholder in the affairs of our great nation. Mr. President, that with an average attendance of over 10,000 participants, this conference represents one of the largest single gatherings of lawyers anywhere in the world. I congratulate you on this feat and commend you all for consistently organizing and improving this conference over the years in a manner that has given our dear country positive global attention and respect. I welcome all our foreign guests, and I wish you all happy and productive stay in Nigeria. The theme of this year's conference, which is Facing the Future, is one which will certainly resonate with all lovers of progress and social growth in light of our contemporary domestic and global realities. I also consider it significant in view of the fact that it once more demonstrates the willingness of the NBA to address issues not only related to the narrow practice of law, but more importantly, to the evolution of societies within which the law is to be practiced. In adopting this theme, the NBA, in my opinion, has demonstrated the resolve to confront the challenges of an inevitable future frontally by deploying significant intellectual capital, not only to attempt an outstanding of that future, but indeed to master it. Progressive societies make quantum leaps by planning for the future. It is a common saying that we plan to fail when we fail to plan. Societies can therefore only experience positive transition from one level to the next level when there is a collective or shared vision of a future directions or destination. Such shared visions must then be complemented by deliberate plans to strengthen institutions, review processes, and eliminate natural and man-made obstacles in order to achieve the heights we must attain if humanity is to continue on its present trajectory of improvement in all spheres of life. I found the theme of this year's conference particularly fitting too, because it accords with the fundamental direction of this administration's policies and actions since the commencement of the first tenure in 2015. We have been propelled by the consciousness that the present generation of Nigerians cannot afford to run the affairs of the country in a manner that will prejudice the well-being and comfort of our future generations. In a progressive manner, we are therefore instituting and implementing deliberate policies designed to empower our national institutions and improve our law enforcement and advocacy processes in order to promote accountability, transparency, and restitution in the management of our national affairs. In doing this, we have had to disrupt age-long assumptions and unsettled historical narratives on the presumed immunity of sacred cows in our society, simply to demonstrate that henceforth the law will be used as a potent instrument to regulate the activities of all persons and institutions in our country in a fair and transparent manner. I'm of course aware that there is still a lot more to be done, and I assure you that we shall not waver or become tired in the present crusade to achieve a radical transformation of values in the discharge of public responsibilities, both within the public and private sectors. Given the enormity of challenges we face today as a nation, we indeed have no option but to ensure that our national commonwealth is deployed for the benefit of the majority of our people and not for the greed and interest of a few. According to all credible domestic and international demographic bodies, Nigeria by 2015 and beyond could become about the fourth most populous country in the world. These statistics should challenge us all as the privileged elite and decision makers of today to pursue policies and initiatives which will guarantee that the future will be a prosperous one and that our potential population size will actually become an asset and not a recipe for human suffering, disaster, and implosion. As Africa's largest economy, we are naturally in a vantage position to utilize our present capacities optimally in order to reach our full economic potentials to cater for our population size. The coming into force of the African Continental Free Trade Area Treaty, which Nigeria signed on July 7, 2019, presents us a major opportunity to tap into African continent's enormous human and capital economic resources, thereby allowing for deployment of our citizens' acclaimed spirit of enterprise and innovation. As a professional body desirous of charting a path into the future, I must also encourage you to take full advantage of the benefit of this treaty once it becomes fully operational in order to expand the scope of your services beyond the shores of Nigeria through support to emerging trans-border commercial entities and the provision of advisory legal services to individuals and institutions, among others. Within our borders, we must also collectively work to harness the enormous and largely untapped potentials which exist within our country in order to move the trajectory of our economic performance permanently in the direction of real growth and development. The economic recovery and growth plan, which we are pursuing vigorously, aims to achieve sustained, inclusive growth in the medium term through structured transformation and focused expenditure on critical areas of national life. We are, for instance, mindful of the fact that there is a need to improve and expand expenditure in critical infrastructure such as power, rail, and road networks in order to unleash the inherent potentials in our economic space. It was also this thinking that informed the present administration decisions in 2018 to establish the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund with a seed fund of $650 million approved by the National Economic Council, which is currently being managed by the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. The initiatives aims to eliminate the risk of project funding, cost variation, and policy changes that have marred the face of infrastructural delivery in our country over the last few decades. As a country, we must exert more efforts to close the infrastructure gap which we currently suffer in Nigeria and which in a very direct manner affects the quality of life that is possible for our people. As lawyers, I recognize your role in attracting a higher level of project funding to Nigeria from international sources, given your individual and collective relationships with domestic and international financial institutions. Please use these connections and collaborations for Nigeria and not only for the promotion of individual or narrow interest. As you are all aware, law and economic development are closely related subjects, and the practice of both impacts our lives either positively or negatively depending on our attitudes and practices as professionals. It is in the above context that I must now turn attention to the contemporary issue of the recent affirmation by a British court of the award of a humongous sum of about $9 billion against the Federal Republic of Nigeria and in favor of a foreign firm, Process and Industrial Development Limited, arising from a failed 20-year gas supply processing agreement purportedly entered with P&ID by the federal government in 2010, which contract P&ID never performed as agreed. While we take the necessary steps to mitigate the potential damage arising from this inexplicable award, which threatens at least 20% of our national reserves, it must be said that it is a sad testimony to the potentials for national economic disaster when legal issues are handled either in a compromised, ignorant, or incompetent manner. Let me inform you that without prejudice to our right to continue to challenge this award, Mr. President has already directed the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice to take steps to ensure that all issues related to negotiation, signing, formation, and obvious prostration of the purported contract are duly investigated, and all persons and institutions, whether in the private or public sectors, who acted in ways that have now caused our dear nation potential economic adversity and widespread opprobrium are made to pass the law through prosecution in the law courts. Never again shall we allow selfish and short-sighted individuals to compromise our national interests and walk away without sense of accountability or responsibility, whether as public officers or as private business or professional practitioners. Never again. As you go into this annual conference, let me assure you of the resolve of this administration to promote measures that will achieve a vibrant economic and safe country under which the practice of law will thrive. By sticking to our principles of prudence, accountability, and responsibility, we shall continue to build a Nigeria that will work for all. We shall also encourage and work to achieve greater interagency collaboration and cooperation with the states and other stakeholders as a strategy to promote a more efficient and inclusive legal system. I urge you to deploy your professional expertise and competence in whatever capacity you find yourselves as individuals to support our country in this quest. We have, as a government, supported constitutional amendment that was aimed at sustaining the independence of judiciary and form an executive committee at the national level to ensure financial autonomy of the judiciary at the national and state level. Our attention as a government, our actions as a government is apparent by conceding to adverse decisions, which is a clear testimony of non-interference in the judicial processes and functions in these countries. Cases with political undertones in which adverse decisions were handed down and conceded to by the government re-establish our resolve. I trust that this conference will achieve tremendous success, and I urge that you all participate actively in its various intellectual and social activities in order to build new bonds and strengthen our relationships. It is my hope that the outcome of your deliberations will impact positively on the socio-economic fortunes and future of our country and Africa and improve the access of the poor, underprivileged, and underprivileged in our society to justice. Your Excellencies, my lords, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to declare on behalf of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria the 2019 Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association open. May God bless you all. Long live Nigeria, long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.